Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, a place to find connection and a sense of belonging, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about sensitivity and the richness that it adds, the strengths we have because of our sensitivity, and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there, to the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers. I really hadn't intended on doing any more episodes talking about COVID-19, but what I'm seeing in a number of the HSP communities that I'm involved in is this is affecting every single one of us. And what I'm finding is the more people are able to talk about it, put words to their experience, to see that they are not alone, the things that they're experiencing are very common, and to continue to connect and talk about what's helping and what resources are providing comfort for us. I think that's the way that we're going to manage. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and this is not an episode you want to listen to, please make choices that work for you. In my estimation, but you'll need to decide for yourself. This really is about naming what's going on. I've been really fortunate to be talking to people all over the world. This last week, I had 4 of the online HSP courses. In them, I have people from the UK, Ireland, a couple people in Canada. Between personal clients, I have somebody that I spoke to in Japan, a couple of people in Germany, somebody in Mexico, and I've been talking to people all over the US. So I feel like I have a pretty good sense of how some people all over the world are being impacted. I also did a couple of free Zoom calls for the folks in my online Facebook group, and I did a Zoom call for the highly sensitive therapists in a group that I'm in. And with the people that I'm talking to that live all over the world personally, just for my own support. And so I think it's really important for us as highly sensitive people to hear how other highly sensitive people are being impacted and to share resources. And so that's really what my intention is. So you decide if this is something that you want to listen to or not. There's a Facebook group called Elaine Aaron, and I think it's High Sensitivity. And this week, a couple of people from the ICHS, which is I think it's International Consultants on High Sensitivity, did an online call, and they also talked about stories of hope and how the pandemic is affecting HSPs all over the world. And it was really validating to listen to. I'm going to try and put as much of this stuff into the show notes as I can. But again, just putting words to things. And one of the things that I heard somebody say is, as highly sensitive people, we tend to be pretty conscientious. And for those of us that are really being mindful around social distancing, when we see other people who are not doing social distancing the way that we think it should be done right now, we might be feeling pretty grumpy and irritable and mad about it and not having a sense of control. And that really resonated with me. And it was something that I'd been experiencing, but really hadn't put words to. And hearing somebody else say it out loud helped me identify it. And that is why I think doing episodes like this and for us to continue to connect and talk about it, even if it's a little bit upsetting or frustrating, helps us understand why we're having the reactions that we're having. I know for many of us that have family, friends that are in vulnerable populations, we have concerns about how they're responding. If we have kids that are not making the choices that we would want them to make. And I think just understanding, this is what's getting triggered for me. Doesn't mean I have a right to control people. Doesn't mean I have a right to say anything to anybody. I mean, we get to choose, but I've seen some things that don't really work for me, but they're not people that are directly related to me. I just get to know that I'm having feelings and know that I can choose to manage my own feelings. And just because I know that it's making me upset doesn't mean that I get to be the boss of everybody in the world. I want to talk to you about a number of common themes that I'm seeing and even something really minor. Again, I hadn't even thought about this, but my friend Dara Hoffman Fox had posted, is anybody having reactions when you're watching TV or reading a book and people are doing things that are not social distancing and having this reaction like, you can't be doing that? And I'm reading a book right now and they were talking about going to a restaurant. I was thinking, you can't be doing that. And my husband had made a comment about commercials where people are gathering and doing things. So we're being affected on such kind of minor and major levels at the same time. And again, just recognizing and naming what's going on, I think can be so powerful. And I hadn't realized that I was having these little internal reactions. That's why I just think it's so important to talk about what's going on. So some of the things that I've noticed with the people that I'm staying in touch with is it's really hard to know whether we're coming or going. And on a day-to-day basis, how we're feeling can change. One day we may be feeling like, okay, this is okay, it's manageable. The next day we may be irritable, we may be weepy, we may be exhausted. Last week I was really unusually busy. 4 days I was going more than I ever do. And then Friday I had a migraine, which I don't get migraines. Could have been stress related. I don't know. I was in bed all day. I'll spare you the details of my migraine. And then yesterday on Saturday, I just was pretty low energy. We did go walk the dog. We've been very mindful about social distancing, but we've made a lot of conscious choices about, making sure that we're keeping safe. But my energy has been really low. I don't have energy to watch TV. I've been much more introverted. And with all of these things, so like while you're home, it's a great time to do projects and clean and be creative and connect and do all of these things. Again, we're getting these messages about we're supposed to be doing and being productive, and especially for highly sensitive people right now, I think this is a time to really honor our needs, take downtime, rest. I'm not feeling like I've got a lot of energy to even enjoy rest, to be honest with you. I'm listening to a book on Audible. It's nice because it's distracting me. It's giving me kind of another place to sort of escape into. I'm really okay with that. And I think that this really is a time for radical self-acceptance, to allow ourselves to be wherever it is that we need to be, and to just know that from day to day, how we feel may change. I also know that right now, many of us are saying and doing things that we normally wouldn't say or do. So in the big scheme of things, we really have an opportunity to choose when we look back on this time, how is it that we want to show up in the world? Do we want to show up with kindness, compassion, love, and caring? Now, having said that, it makes sense if we're more irritable, if we're more snappy. My friend Ariana Smith, I know I'm going to get this a little bit wrong, but talked about making a t-shirt that said, I'm really sorry for the things that I said during COVID-19. And I had a rupture with one of my sons this week. I got really activated, and we're responding very differently to how we feel about what's going on. And although I stayed calm, I was activated, and it created a rupture, which created pain, which meant I didn't sleep for a night. And we've done some repair work, and I've needed to be mindful about how much I can step back into the relationship right now, because I know that I have concerns about wanting people that I care about to be safe. So knowing that this is a really challenging time, we're in uncharted territory, we don't have the structure and security that we normally have. I mean, part of it is an illusion about how much security and knowing that we have this illusion of control. And right now we're really in a place of uncertainty. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think that it's possible to have a view of how we want to show up right now. I would like to be able to look back at this time and know that I was available to people. I was here. I created space for people. I was kind. I was compassionate. And I'm human. And so I have shortcomings, and I'm just going to do the best that I can do, and there has to be room for that. And to just honor that everything may feel topsy-turvy right now. My overreaching message is I think that it's going to be really important for us to be able to hold the both and. So if you could see me, I'm holding up my left hand with my palm up, and this is the uncertainty, the fear, the things that we don't know about. To honor the feelings that are coming up, we can't pretend that they're not there. And I'm holding my right hand up with my palm facing up. And we get to make conscious choices about how we choose to show up and what we choose to do during this time. And we can experience both. So it's not an either or. It's not everything is terrible and everything's going down the drain. And it's not everything is perfect and we're living a beautiful, harmonious life. It's about living in the messy middle. And I really think that we have the ability to do that. I mean, my overreaching message is HSPs are the leaders, the healers, and the connectors. And I really, really, really believe that we have the ability to show up, hold space for people, honor people's feelings, create a place where people feel comfortable. We also need to be asking for help and support right now. Also, I'm not at all saying that we should tap ourselves out and just be of service. However, I think that given the fact that we process so deeply and we can be impacted, and with the empathy overload, especially with all of the changes that are going on, and having empathy for the people around us, people that we don't know, that when we can take some action, whether it's being of service or volunteering or finding ways to connect, to reach out with other people, that is going to give us a sense of, I don't want to say control, but we are taking action. And I think that with action comes a sense of self-efficacy. One of the things that I see coming up, and this is part of what happened with the rupture that I had with my son, is many of us have been told in the past we take things too seriously, we make a big deal out of things. People are responding very differently right now to social distancing and how serious they think COVID-19 is. When we are able to acknowledge and recognize that we feel one way and somebody else feels another way, and just be able to hold both of those things, not from a right-wrong, but to be able to hold their perspective and our perspective, I think it creates a little bit more acceptance for us. I'm not saying that we have to agree with other people don't have to agree with us, but when we come from that binary place of this is how it should be done, this is what's right, I have very strong feelings right now about what I think everybody should be doing. I do. And I can't enforce that. And so how can I live with the fact that other people have a different idea of what social distancing looks like, what essential services are, what businesses should be operating and what businesses shouldn't? And I also understand that people need to make a living. It's a really hard place right now. So again, I'm not implying that I have the answers, that I know what people should be doing. I'm just saying that when we can use the gift of holding more than one perspective in mind and know that I have feelings when other people are not doing things the way that I think would be helpful for our society right now, and I just need to hold that. And there are people that feel that their way is the one way and the only way, whether that's thinking that we're overreacting or underreacting, but knowing that that's going to get activated. And like I said, my husband called my son the other day, and I listened to the call, but I didn't participate because I know that I still have this tendency to get activated. It's not that I don't love him. It's not that I don't care. I found other ways to connect with him. But for right now, while I know that I may be a little bit more activated, I just want to give a little bit of space to the relationship. We are all in a huge period of adjustment right now. Huge. Many people are working from home. Some people have lost their jobs, and so we're dealing with economic insecurity. Many of us have kids at home. Many parents are being tasked with the responsibility to now be a teacher for their kids and expected to be working from home, having partners at home, potential loss of income, reshifting priorities. If we've got aging parents or children, or we know anybody who's medically vulnerable, if we have immune compromised systems or we're medically fragile, all of these things are adjustments. Do I go out and get groceries? What's essential? What's not essential? Am I going to be able to get my prescriptions, my medications? I mean, these are all valid things, and I'm not bringing these up to create panic. I'm just naming that we are doing a lot of adjusting and shifting. And for many of us as HSPs, we value the time that we have alone during the day, even if that's in the cars, we're dropping kids off at school or we're driving to work. And now if we have partners that are working from home, our kids are home, we're not getting that sense of a reprieve. And how do we manage that? And for those people that are extroverted, that have kids that are extroverted, high sensation seeking, how do we get those needs met if we're doing social distancing? I think what I'm going to do is talk about that a little bit now, just because I'm afraid that if I don't, I'm going to forget and not come back to it. If you have kids, what Jen Perry has done a couple times is she has had play dates with her kids via Skype or Zoom or FaceTime. The kids have set up watercoloring, and the kids are young, so they will interact a little bit directly, but then what they do is they end up watercoloring, and because they're doing a primary activity, then they end up chatting. And so can we set up kind of parallel play dates for our kids via Google Hangouts, Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, any of those free apps so that our kids have a chance to connect with their friends and do an activity. I think connection is really important right now, and we need to find ways to keep our kids and our partners and ourselves engaged because we are wired for connection. And just because we can't physically be in proximity with some of the people that we want to be with, finding those ways to connect is going to be really, really important. You know, the other thing that's really challenging right now is trying to figure out what social distancing looks like. And that means having to set limits. If we've got kids, our kids are wanting to play with their friends. I have feelings about what I think social distancing should look like. I'm going to keep that to myself. Everybody, depending on where you're living, is living with different guidelines. We may feel guilty about setting boundaries, even though we can be fierce advocates for others when things are unjust or unfair. I know about a week ago, I had to talk to my son about what felt okay and not okay to do. I was really tearful. And that's unusual for me. But, you know, my son is 19. He lives at home. I feel like it just was difficult, you know, making decisions about, can his girlfriend who lives in Long Beach come back down to see us? And we decided for our family what works. I'm not going to share that because it's really up to everybody to decide. But I was very, very tearful when we talked about this because I don't like telling my 19-year-old what he can and can't do. That's just not how my style is. And I was really surprised to see how incredibly tearful I was. And so it may bring up guilt for us or just uncomfortable feelings. We may have narratives around we don't want to be bossy or controlling or saying that others aren't doing enough because it is going to trigger those things. If we're really hustling right now and our partners or kids aren't doing the things that we think that they should do and we don't want to ask them, that also creates conflict. So this really is a time for us to tune into ourselves and to figure out what is it that we're wanting and needing, and can we find ways to communicate it? Ideally, it's easier if we can talk about it when it's not in the moment. I mean, there's already this big thing, and I've talked to so many people around cleaning, that if we're cleaning and our partner or our kids aren't cleaning, it can make us irritable. It can bring up stuff about who does a more thorough job cleaning. I mean, this is something that has nothing to do with COVID-19 that I've talked to enough people about. So now if we're home and we're managing and we're taking on more tasks and more responsibilities, we may have that resentment building up. So it may mean having a family meeting and talking about what are the household responsibilities and who can pitch in and who's going to do what and how do we know that things are getting done, and just having regular times where we communicate. Because we are living in closer quarters right now and there are more responsibilities. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a bad thing. It's an adjustment. Transitions can be a little bit bumpy for some of us. For some of us that like things to be planned and predictable. It's an opportunity to feel the discomfort of the change and the uncertainty and to find new ways to create connection. We are so good about thinking outside of the box. So it's about allowing whatever the uncomfortable feelings that are coming up. And part of the reason why I'm doing this episode is I'm hoping that you'll hear things that have been going on and go like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not a bad parent because of that. And it will create space. And a perfect example is I talked to my husband about, we used to play catch all the time and I loved it. And he asked if I wanted to play yesterday and I didn't. But he and my son played. My husband and my boys have played baseball since the time the boys were in kindergarten, and all through high school they played baseball. My husband coached and he loved it. And then my son took out the PS4, which belonged to his brother who is away at college. My husband spent probably 2 hours last night watching my son play on the PS4. It reminded me of the ways that I really struggle showing up as a parent. My husband could always watch the boys play games, the video games, and my kids love that sense of companionship. I just can't do that. There are certain ways of parenting that, like the imaginary play, I didn't do very great at. I could do structured play. I could do singing. I could do artwork. There were just certain things that didn't work. And I had a lot of guilt as a parent, and that guilt surfaced again last night because my husband can sit for 2 hours and just support my son, which my son really needed. He's incredibly isolated from his friends right now. I've got to honor that guilt that came up for me and know that I show up in other ways that are meaningful. And isn't it great that there's somebody right now that can show up for my son in a way that's really meaningful? For parents that are able to sit and watch your kids play or play with them or do imaginary play or whatever it is that your kids like, give yourself credit for that, especially if it comes easily to you, because it doesn't come easily for everybody. And that sense of presence for our kids is so important right now. One of the things that I'm hearing and seeing around people that have aging parents, and that would be my mom. Love you, Mom, if you're listening. Hey there. Some seniors are saying, I've lived a good life, and if I go out with COVID-19, I'm fine with that. For those of us that are the adult children, that doesn't feel so reassuring to us. So this may be activating to those of us that are taking precautions to keep them safe. And my husband and I have been doing shopping for my mom. She's been staying in, and this morning she went out and did some grocery shopping, and I found myself having a reaction. And I feel like we've been doing all these things to keep her safe, and she went out. The stores around us have special hours for seniors early in the morning. And I had to honor the feeling that I had, and I talked to my mom, and she's getting cabin fever. It's really hard for her to not be out and about. She's incredibly independent. And she has a right to make the choices that she wants to make. She came home. I didn't tell her how I felt. Now she knows. Mom, feel free to stop by and tell me how you feel. She lives with us. And she told me the precautions that she used and what she did. And she gets to decide for herself. It's not really my place to boss her around, but that disempowered part of me that came up is like, fine, you just do all your stuff. Like, why are we knocking ourselves out doing errands for you if you're going to go out and put yourself at risk? I'm sharing this with you because these thoughts and feelings are incredibly normal. Obviously, my mom listens to the podcast, so now it's not fresh news. But, I chose not to share that with my mom because she has a right to do what she wants to do, and I cannot control her behavior. She gets to choose. I'm just putting words to things that may be going on, and we need to find ways to create peace over the things that we can control and manage and accept the things that we can't. I spoke about this in the last bonus episode, but really being mindful about what we're consuming, how much news, where do we get the news from? Is it working for us to be on social media? What kinds of social media? It's really important for us to cling right now to the things that nourish our souls and really feed us. And with differential susceptibility, we do better when we're surrounded by things that work. Some of us want to get information, and I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong, but this is a time to be incredibly mindful about what we're doing. And we may be doing things that aren't working, and if we can observe ourselves just doing them with kindness and compassion, that's okay. I've seen so many posts on social media about people being concerned about gaining weight and that they're stress eating. And then I see the people that are health at every size saying, this is not the time to start a diet. This is not the time for diet industry to try and put stress on people. We're going to do what we need to do to cope and survive. And right now, we just want to have a tremendous amount of self-compassion and gentleness and know that we're doing the best that we can, and whatever we're doing to take care of ourselves, that's good enough. And to really just lower the bar right now. We're in uncharted territory. There's a lot of uncertainty. We can create pockets of security and comfort, and we've got to be really gentle with ourselves about doing the best that we can do for ourselves. So what are the things that we can do? Find ways to connect with others. We are wired for connection. Send a text to somebody just to make sure they're doing okay. If you have a senior or somebody who is immune compromised, see if there's something that you can do to help them. You can do porch drop-offs and pickups if you want to do a little bit of grocery shopping for somebody. I was reading today about we want to wipe down stuff that comes in from the outside. I'm not a medical person. I'm not a health person. I'm just saying if I'm going to suggest something, I also want to suggest what I'm hearing about it. We've got to find ways to share the good stuff. And right now in the closed Facebook group, Unapologetically Sensitive, I am holding weekly Zoom calls for members of the group. I think there's somebody else who may be facilitating her own Zoom group through the meeting. People are posting amazing resources in there. There's so many free things that are coming up, and I'm really pleased that the community is really showing up. Melissa Childs has set up a Marco Polo group chat for people that want to stay connected. I just think it's an amazing resource. So if you're interested in joining, go to the closed Facebook group, Unapologetically Sensitive. There are a couple of questions that you need to answer in order to be admitted to the group. but I really want to create a positive environment with lots of good stuff and resources and a way that we can connect and get what we need right now. I think it's really important to focus on gratitude every day. If you can find 3 things that you're feeling grateful for, we can be stressed and worried and we can focus on gratitude. I'm not talking about just pretending like everything's okay. If there are ways that you can be of service, I think that that's really, really helpful. I know having animals to connect with right now is really helpful. And so if you're isolated and you have a neighbor who's got a pet, offer to walk the pet, offer to babysit the pet. If you have, someone who's going out into the community because of their job and their pet needs some companionship during the day, there are ways that we can get our needs met because I think having the love of animals can really be helpful. Ask for help. It's really okay if you're needing help, and it's helping people to stay connected and giving people a sense of, I can't think of the word, a sense of connection, that they're able to be of help to someone. Use this time as a time to slow down. We often talk about needing to slow down. And again, there's so much talk right now about how we should be productive. And I'm seeing stuff on social media where people are baking and painting, and it's making me feel really inadequate that all I can do right now is just rest and recover. And I have to trust that this is a stressful time. I'm holding space for a lot of people. And when I have downtime, I need to take the time that I need to rest and recover. And I would love to get my house cleaned and organized, and maybe I'll have the energy for that and maybe I won't. This is part of the acceptance. And again, it's so easy to get caught up in this myth that, other families are showing on social media. They're singing and they're doing all these great active things. If you're able to do that, great. And if all you can do is just hold it together and do the bare minimum, that's okay too. If you're able to get outdoors, get in nature, I think that is really a helpful thing. Please be mindful, use social distancing, but that is one of the things that can be so restorative to HSPs is having time out in nature, even if it just means sitting outside, getting a little bit of sunshine every day. If you can find ways to move your body, again, in the closed Facebook group, we've got all kinds of resources for free services of where you can go online to do yoga and qigong and meditations. So if you usually go to a gym and you're not able to, or you're living where there's inclement weather, there are great resources right now where we can move our body. It's great for our immune system. It's great for our mental health. And there's always that thing that I say that sitting is better than laying down. Standing is better than sitting. Walking is better than standing. So it's not about holding the bar at the standard of this is what I'm used to doing at the gym and I should be doing all this stuff. Whatever we can do to get a little bit more movement is going to be good enough. This is really also an opportunity to be mindful and consciously find ways to connect, whether that's with other people or creativity or beauty or nature or animals. If it's watching or reading, whatever it is, it's going to help you find that sense of connection. We just really need to have some of that. And if that means that on days when I'm really quiet, I can text. I had a friend that wanted to Marco Polo with me last night and I was too tired. And so I said, I said, I just don't even have that in me tonight. And can we make a plan for tomorrow? And so that's the other thing, is really honoring where we're at. But sometimes the best I can do is text. It's just too much to show up any other way. So finding ways that we really can honor ourselves. If you're interested in joining the closed Facebook group, Unapologetically Sensitive, I want to give a shout out to Amber Lansford, who is now adminning the group for me. She's welcoming the new people in. There are a couple of people in the group that have stepped up and are really helping and being active. I really appreciate everybody. I see there are some really beautiful opportunities for us to really connect. People are much more hungry for connection right now. People who tend to like to be alone and like their alone time, now that they have to be more alone and there's social distancing, what I'm hearing is they're having this crave to connect. It's like tell somebody to not think about something, or you can't eat something, or you can't do something, and that's all you want to do. That's part of what's going on right now also. So this really is an opportunity to build new connections, find new ways that we can care for ourselves, have radical self-acceptance, Like I said, we're doing weekly Zoom meetings in the group. I would love to be a support to you. I can't tell you how long this is going to be happening. This is coming out in March. Gosh, I don't even know what date this is coming out. So if you're listening to this episode in the future, I will not be holding the Zoom groups indefinitely ongoing. But if you are listening to this one, this comes out in March. It's going to be the week of the 20th, 2020. I want to be here and be a support. Help me understand how I can support you. This really is a time to come together. For the therapists that listen, I've created a closed Facebook group called Unapologetically Sensitive Therapists Group. I will be doing weekly Zoom calls in this group for the next couple of weeks at least. I want to create a safe space for the therapist to show up. I think we really need to have a place where we can talk about what's going on. And one of the things I didn't mention that I've talked to a number of highly sensitive therapists this week about, I'm getting messy with my words, is that everybody is really distracted right now. And as therapists, we are feeling preoccupied. It doesn't mean that we're not showing up good enough for our clients, but I found myself preoccupied. I'm still able to be present for my clients. But this is a huge thing, and I really want to create a safe space for therapists to show up with our imperfections, where we can talk about what's going on. It doesn't make us worse therapists. It makes us better therapists when we have safe places. If you're interested in the closed Facebook group, I will try and remember to put a link in the group, but it's Unapologetically Sensitive Therapists Group. I think that's all I have. Bless each and every one of you. Take good care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. Thank you for being listeners of the podcast. If there is content that you're wanting, if there are things that I can do to support you and I'm able to do that, I really want to be of service to you right now. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.